On Wednesday this week, I completed my 90th year. It's timely to review how momentous these years have been. I was welcomed into life with my father's heartfelt statement that I was an accident. In perspective, I did have a 10-and-a-half-month-old brother. And then came the Great Depression, fascism, Nazi Germany, World War II, the incredible development of flight and telecommunications, science, including medicine, rocketry, space exploration, moon landings, the space station. It seems that almost every week there is something new to wonder at, and I'm sympathetic to my father. It was indeed only 10 years earlier than my birth that Einstein wrote his special and general theories of relativity. The Cambridge and Copenhagen groups fashioned the quantum theory of subatomic properties of matter, which within a few years led to the application of Einstein's famous equation E equals mc squared and the destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It is equally astonishing that humanity has survived in the succeeding 7 decades since World War II, in no small part due to the doctrine MAD, mutual assured destruction. The next slide shows the Andromeda Galaxy 2.5 million light years away and visible in the New Zealand summer sky without a telescope. Light takes about 220,000 years to cross it and 2.5 million years to reach us. What it was, this fuzzy spot, was in those days controversial, though we now know that it is just the closest of billions of galaxies, of which our Milky Way is one, and home for the star on which our existence depends. Our place on planet Earth, a rocky planet with all the requirements for life in all its diversity and richness, is also miraculous. If it were not so, we wouldn't be here. In the 1960s, 2 pivotal discoveries were made. The first is that the universe had a starting point. Yes, literally a point at which space and time began. That has now been measured numerous times, and we know it to be 13.77 billion years ago. Further, we have measured the remnant radiation from that event, as the next slide shows. The alternative view, advocated by the then Astronomer Royal Fred Hoyle, was of continuous creation in the universe, but it was wrong. It then took the 13.77 billion years until, on a planet in which everything was just right, an animal with a brain capable of both operating a complex creature on the planet and reflecting on the why and wherefore of life, developed here. The last 2 million years of the development of humans is but a blink in the cosmic eye. So why did it take so long? The first element in the universe was the simplest, hydrogen with 1 electron. It took 300,000 years before the primordial soup of atomic fragments became cool enough for matter to assemble, mainly hydrogen and helium. Stars radiate heat and light in the process of converting hydrogen into helium, and that's why they shine. But 5% of a human body needs the heavier elements, the metals, oxygen, phosphorus, iron, and so on. These only occur in the universe during the death of a star, which after several billion years of life can collapse by its own gravity into a supernova explosion. The next slide is a photograph of such an explosion remnant spreading the heavy elements into space, perhaps to form another Earth-like planet. This one was 160,000 light years from here. We come now to an even wider view. One of the consequences of relativity is that all time is accessible all of the time. That is beautifully illustrated in the next two slides. On this slide, I have drawn a pixel of the night sky. The Hubble telescope, in place to avoid atmospheric distortion, was pointed at such a small dark patch for 10 days. The next slide shows the extreme deep field we can see in that pixel. It takes us as close to the beginning of space-time as we can get, 13.2 billion years ago. It shows thousands of formed and forming galaxies. So what was before? What was the first cause? Is the simple fact of being enough? I am, the insight given to Moses, was incomprehensible to creatures of space-time. What was the nature of the first cause? Meanwhile, the human brain continued its development in language, logic, mathematics, poetry, the self, consciousness, reflective narrative, love, compassion. The development of science and knowledge in the last 500 years, for example, has been truly spectacular, and it is still becoming. Naturally, the developing human brain sought to understand the Creator in all cultures. Since there was no scientific knowledge of a start, there was no need for a first cause. The start was shrouded in myths. Adam and Eve and Rangi and Papa are the two we are familiar with. Cultures sought to grasp the nature of the Creator in the truths these stories enshrine. In our Judeo-Christian narrative, select individuals during the past 4,000 to 5,000 years, patriarchs, prophets, knew a sense of communication with God. Abraham, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, Elijah, David, and the others had the task of conveying received messages to their tribes. Sometimes the message was received through the agency of angels, sometimes in visions and dreams. Finally, some 2,000 years ago, in our tradition, we come to Jesus as the ultimate revelation of the nature of the Creator. Yes, this was the incarnation of the Creed. Et incarnatus est, et homo factus est. But it was much more than an historical one-off. We can infer from the Gospel record that Jesus had a human brain, probably like ours, and capable of communicating directly with the first cause Jesus called Father. The unconditional love he demonstrated in the nuts and bolts of being human is, we believe, the ultimate truth about the nature of the first cause. The Comforter of Pentecost given to the early church makes this capability of connection to the first cause available to all believers. We and the witness of countless ages and saints have known this as the presence of the Holy Spirit. And just as the Jesus mission on earth was to reveal through his life in the Spirit the nature of the first cause to creatures of space and time, so our brains can learn to communicate with that nature as an active part in incarnation. So this is where I have arrived at the end of my 90 years. We are incarnate. Yes, our minds can embody this unconditional love. With Jesus, the first exemplar, as our model, we are not alone. Welcome to our incarnation. Jesus, thou art all compassion, pure, unbounded love thou art. Visit us with thy salvation. Enter every trembling heart. We started with the beginning of space-time, and we finish with a welcome to the presence of the Holy Spirit in our lives. The tune for this hymn that I have written is familiar to us all. It's any of the tunes that fit love divine or love's excelling. Undivided wholeness answers measured non-locality. Love and grace thrive here unfathomed. Transcend physicality. Science proves that mind and matter act together. End debate. Inward light affirms our goodness. Mind and matter correlate. Wairua tatu kuhu mai, to receive your presence now. Accepting here the cross and chalice, as in awe we humbly bow. Faith and knowledge flow together, need each other